Information in this podcast is of general nature only. It does not take into account your personal needs or objectives. Before investing in any product, you need to consider your personal situation, needs and objectives. Always seek professional advice for your particular circumstances and needs prior to investing.
Phil, hello mate, how are you?
Fantastic, mate. Good to be here.
Great. So Phil, this is the first time you've joined the podcast. For the people who might be watching this, who are you? Why are you here? What gives you any kind of authority to talk about anything related to the disability housing sector?
Wow, once upon a time I wouldn't have thought I was particularly qualified, but that's going right back to about 2018. And I guess myself and my business partners have been around since day dot in terms of the NDIS. And if I'm going to identify or enunciate what qualifies me, it's the fact that I've had hundreds upon hundreds of calls with homeowners. They might find us organically, they might find us on the net, they might come as referrals.
So you're a director of Disability Housing Solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Director and co-owner of Disability Housing Solutions, DHS colloquially. Yes, and just the number of calls that I've had with people put me in a pretty good position to have a fairly firm grasp on what's going out there at the coalface.
Okay, now we've just had a little bit of a chat about what we'd like to talk about today, and you know, there's some of the episodes we've done. You know, you and I chat a little bit, and I chat with your other partner Greg and Lauren, and we do the podcast. Lauren and I, a lot of the time, she's just not available today, and we're pretty passionate about giving people the right kind of information they need, whatever their position is in this ecosystem. Whether you're a tenant or a SIL or a provider or a builder or a landlord, whatever position you occupy in the ecosystem, we're pretty keen that people understand everything they possibly can understand about their part in it. And for me, like coming back into disability in the past 12 months or so after having been away for a few years, one of the concerns I had has come to fruition, and it's tragic. And it's the concern and the tragedy about good people who come across unscrupulous people and are sold a product that they're told is going to be life-changing for somebody. And the person that's life-changing for is the person that bought it when they lose all the resources they just tipped into it, all of the money they tipped into it.
Oh my God, boy, Look, I've got a litany of these things, and I'll declare straight up front that I'm a real softie. And when I've got grown men, this is literal, mate. When I've got grown men in tears, when I've delivered the news to them that their place has never ever it's got a snowflake's chance in hell of meeting the expectations that they were sold, and I often make the distinction when they start beating themselves up. I say, hey, listen, I've got to tell you, you made a decision based on your knowledge at the time. We know it because we're at the coalface. We deal with this day in, day out. You didn't know what you didn't know. And unfortunately, you were at the hands of very, very, I'm going to say unscrupulous, I'm going to say very skilled salespeople who have an ability to ask you a question. For example, what piques your interest in SDA? Oh, I want to help people. Oh my goodness, imagine how many people you're going to be able to help by buying this beautiful home with 3 bedrooms, 3 SDA bedrooms. So they're not at fault. They just don't know what they don't know. Now, there's a real double-edged sword here. If I could wave my magic wand, every single person that's looking at buying an SDA dwelling would come knocking on our door and say, can I have half an hour with Phil? But here's the other side.
Or someone's door, or an SDA provider's door, whether it's us, we'd like to give you some time, but anyone. And there's a couple of really good ones out there. We're not,
absolutely.
Part of these videos, mate, we'd love people to knock on our door and work with disability housing solutions, for sure. And if you feel like we're trying to sell to you, then go somewhere else, right? But go somewhere and ask the question.
Absolutely. That's something I preface every call with, Dave, to be honest, and you don't even know that. and that is, this is not a sales call. I'm going to share the next 45 minutes with whoever the person is that's set up an appointment with me. I'm going to share the next 45 minutes educating you. I am not going to sell to you. I'm going to tell you what we do. I'm going to describe the landscape. I'm going to talk to you about whether you've got a good dwelling in a great location or a not so good in a terrible location. Sometimes the far extremes of that continuum, that I'll tell you after I've sent you an email and invited you to ask me questions, you're never going to get a follow-up call or email saying, are you ready to buy? That's not what we do. We educate. We give you enough tools to be able to make a decision. And if I could be so bold as to suggest to them, and I do it empathetically and I do it very gently, where they find themselves is because as a result of the fact that they didn't know what to ask. So I say to them, ask as many questions as you like, put it in an email so that you capture my reply. And then you're going to, the next decision you make will be an informed one. If you feel you can trust me, please trust my answers. And that's what we spent 45 minutes doing. But back to that, really quick on that double-edged sword. There's not enough hours in the day for us to save the world. But I'm glad you said there are other really good SDA providers.
There are.
Story.
And there's some shitty ones out there, but there's some great ones. But it all comes from how you feel with that person.
Absolutely.
I think just recently we had a tenant. I won't name names, but you know who I'm speaking
about. I don't either.
No. Very difficult. Had a property that they bought, sold, and look, I will use the word unscrupulous.
Okay.
Because I know that some of these groups, mate, members from Disability Housing Solutions and other people in the finance world have said to them directly, what you're doing doesn't work, you've got to shift it. And they point blank refuse because it's a moneymaker. To me, that's unscrupulous. So I'll stay there.
You say it. I agree, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this fellow bought a property from an unscrupulous seller. He'd come to us. Took a long time to find tenants. He's very, very, very difficult to work with because he's upset. Fair enough. And ultimately, the relationship broke down. We said, listen, it's best we part ways. He's gone to another SDA provider. They just happened to have a vacancy. He took it, and now he's got a tenant. Right?
Yep, right.
So fantastic. It's a result. So it's important that you go to somebody and ask the question. We'd love it to be us, but if it's not, that's okay. You can't.
Can we peel that one back a little bit too, mate?
Sure.
This is the interesting thing. I know exactly who you're talking about there, and he was offered a tenant at a particular return, and he knocked it back because they didn't match the spreadsheet that was given to him by the people that sold him the property. So they've already set the expectation, and anything that we offer that's below that in a very, very overcrowded market is not going to fly in their eyes. And I would put money on the fact that the person that's now gone into his house is probably, not possibly, probably going to give him the same return that he knocked back with us 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's about resetting expectations. And
there's a lot there. I want to unpack some of that because for those who may not have been on a journey where they've educated themselves, you and I, we're talking right now about like two people who do this all day long.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of make sure we don't run away from the conversation a bit. And so I want to kind of highlight what it is we're talking about, right? Yeah. So if you go onto social media, it seems to be where most of these leads come from. And I've said before on these podcasts that now that my algorithms on my social media know that I look a lot of NDIS stuff, I see all of this stuff come across my phone and my screen. And it's always, 18% returns, 15% returns, tenants a week, government backed, opportunity of a lifetime, money, 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 money. It's just raining money, and this government guarantees it, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of nonsense that we're talking about.
Yeah, it is.
And then the price point for these homes, and invariably, they're a cookie cutter disability design that technically meets the criteria of whatever level of build, if improved livability, fully accessible, robust, high physical support, it meets the standard, but they're nothing amazing. They're a cookie cutter, right? They're designed to get the minimum amount to be approved in the smallest amount of footprint of the home possible.
Yep.
Keep costs down, and they're sited. They're placed on blocks of land as cheap as they can find in certain metropolitan areas that normally wind up in a greenfield development. And we've spoken about this. Lauren and I have spoken about brownfield and greenfield a couple of times.
Yeah.
And so the objective of these packages is to try and package these homes somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000 for a 2 or 3 participant specialist disability accommodation build.
Yep.
And then they are given all sorts of graphs and spreadsheets and NDIS branded literature showing demand and showing returns and feasibilities, and they're sold this dream by a very slick talking, earnest sounding sales specialist.
Yep.
And I can really feel for the buyer here, because it is a very complicated segment. Disability, there's so much to get your head around.
Yeah.
And so they're told everything's going to be okay, and they're given what appears to be very, very reasonable looking figures. And before they know it, they're signing contracts. What they don't get told are the true costs of what it costs to provide SDA provision for a company like Disability Housing Solutions.
Yep.
They get numbers like $5,000 or $6,000 a year is all you're going to pay for SDA management, and that's just not accurate. That's a fraction of the cost to get a property firstly tenanted, enrolled, and then tenanted, and then the ongoing facilitation of property management. It's much higher than that, and we can unpack that later if you want to. And then they're not told real demand data, that they get shown some graph out of the NDIS Finder or the NDIS website that says, you know, demand in Southeast Queensland or northern Queensland is this, and this. You'll get tenants, no worries, mate.
Yep.
And then before you know it, they're at peak debt. They've just paid the final construction drawdown loan. They've got about 30, 40 grand left in the bank, which they think is going to be okay to carry the mortgage for a couple of months. And they find you because this sales group or the spruiker, whoever the hell gave them to us, they didn't want us talking to them until the build was nearly done, because we're going to identify problems.
Yeah, and we'll talk them out of it. Absolutely.
Talk them out of it, right? And then they say, hey, can I have some tenants next month, please? And then they talk to you and you say, listen, it's unlikely you're ever going to have a tenant. And their world falls around them. That's what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Dave. And that's almost scripting how those conversations go. And it gets deeper. I mean, there's people out there flogging, I can't even say it without choking, three resident, let's call it multi-resident robust properties, where a robust participant can't cohabit. They can't live with another human being. Yet they're sold this dream. Now, I've got to say, there's an element of greed that comes in with certain personalities, and they are attracted by those double-digit returns, very high double-digit returns.
Yeah.
Then I have to reset their expectations. I've actually said to people, you know, as the owner of the largest privately owned disability or SDA company in Australia, SDA provider, I should get to enjoy my job, because I do those introductory calls, but I don't enjoy breaking people's heart.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to sit back and give people time to compose themselves. Sometimes they lean forward on the front foot, on the ball of their feet, and come out fighting. And I just let them go. And I say, you know, I didn't sell you the house. Then I share with them a little bit of intel. And that is, do you know what? As an SDA provider, we're not frightened to have an empty house on our books. I don't want it from the perspective of the homeowner, the landlord, but I'm not scared of that, because we didn't create it. We were never consulted on the area, the site, or the design. Whereas the other side of the coin, every single project where we were consulted from day dot, even in some of the most overcrowded areas in Australia, where the developer / builder took our advice, he paid for our advice originally. We don't provide consulting now. Our company's worth is based on the value of its rent roll, not selling our time by the hour. But every single one of those, and we're talking throughout Southeast Queensland, where they listened to our advice, they built the right design, not in the right area, but the right design.
Yeah.
They're all full. They were full not from day dot, close enough to it though. They remained full, and they've appreciated in value. So we've got that side of it. We can explain away vacancies. We've offered a service to the people that have bought these properties, erroneously bought them, but many, many, many times, nearly, I'm going to say half a dozen times a day. So that's how many calls I have. People are finding us left, right, and centre. I say, it is what it is. You've bought the property. Now let's see if we can try to make a silk purse out of the sow's ear and work with them to try to come up with a result.
I've just underlined on my page. I've just underlined the word design and the relevance of it. As I said a moment ago, you've got these cookie cutter bare minimum type plans, all designed to achieve a purported yield for the investor. And the example you gave is a good one. I've seen many marketing blitzes trying to flog 3 participant robust houses in the suburbs out the back of Logan Village somewhere.
And it wouldn't matter where they the fact that they're multi-resident robust means they are not going to get more than one robust dwelling. And I challenge anyone to present a valid argument contrary to that. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I was at a conference on Friday, and there's a robust specialist there, another SDA provider, quite a sharp group. They knew what they're talking about. Am I allowed to name names if they're a good operator?
Absolutely. When they're good ones to name, absolutely.
So these guys are very good operators. Adapt Housing. Adapt, and they're another SDA provider. You don't want to use this, go and find Adapt. Dave Whitelaw's the CEO. Very sharp guy, very, very ethical group. And they specialize, one of the things is robust. And he was talking about the benefit of good design. So what we're starting to see in the market now is particularly in more metropolitan areas, like the closer in the Southeast Queensland corner, Sydney closer to the city areas, and where there is a saturation of crap properties that have been brought out by these spruikers and in a cookie cutter fashion. The houses that spend a bit more and you're prepared to take a lower yield because the buy-in price is higher, instead of spending $900,000, maybe you're spending $1.3 million. They're the ones that fill quickly and stay filled. They might have an extra breakout room or a media room. They might have a swimming pool that's accessible by a person with a disability. They might have tracking that doesn't double tap from the bedroom into the bathroom, but goes all the way through. They spend a bit more money, a bit more thought. They've engaged a specialist SDA architect, and there's a few of them out there, to really give a good design. They're the ones that people want to live in and stay in, versus the cookie cutter in the burbs. But you won't see a spruiker try and sell that, because you're not going to attract the purported 15 to 18% yields. You might get 8%.
But sustainable 8%.
Sustainable 8%.
Net 8%. Absolutely. It's chalk and cheese. And people are attracted to some of those marquee returns on investment, and it's to their detriment. And it's human nature. When you want to buy something because you want that return, well, you're only going to see the evidence that corroborates the decision you've already mentally made. You are actually going to filter out the things that are contrary to it. I just got off a call 2 hours ago with a gentleman, and he was told there's tenants waiting. And I said, mate, there's no such thing as tenants waiting. They're not. When we are told that, I already knew the answer because I know the spiel. when were you told that? When you bought the house? Yes. When was that? Oh, that was prior to Christmas. The house will be ready in, just coming up to Christmas this year. And I just said, think about this for a while. Let's call him Fred so his name doesn't accidentally slip out. I said, Fred, what on God's green earth makes you think that if it was true that there were tenants waiting in late November last year, they're going to hang around till your house is possibly built by Christmas this year? He said, oh, they won't. I said, well, don't talk to me about what you were told. This is about education. I think we established that at the start, Fred. I want to educate you on what's actually happening at the coalface. So I'll work with you if we end up doing business together, but I'm not going to lie down in the gutter with people that told you that there's tenants waiting. It doesn't happen.
One of the things that, we were chatting a little while ago now, and look, emotions run high in these conversations, and I'll talk about this for a little bit more, and then I think we should talk about what prospective buyers can do to avoid these terrible outcomes.
I'd love to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I've just lost my train of thought.
Let me prompt you. Let me prompt you with something.
Shoot.
When people do find a way to our door, and they're certainly finding us because of our profile, we've never marketed up until now. We've never marketed, and it comes about through referrals. Also comes about because various marketing companies know that I will talk to their clients when other people are saying no. And I say that to the clients. I'm talking to you because nobody else will. And I'm really upfront about that. And I'll just see if we can help you. But when they find us, and then I find that they've set an appointment with me, but they haven't actually bought a property, it's a different conversation. So if you like, I can run through. It'll take me 2 minutes to run through that.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, right.
So this is an example of a chat someone might have with you before they sign anything. They're not committed to a property in any fashion.
Absolutely. They want to know the secret source. What's a good area? They'll say, Fred, I want you to picture yourself on the block of land that you're looking at. Now, I've got a particular one in mind here. I'm not going to name even the suburb. I'm just going to say that it's roughly Ipswich, and it's outlying, and there's nothing there except bush. So, and he said his real name there for a minute. So Fred.
Well, look, that's easy to work out. So somewhere like if you're from Queensland or Southeast Queensland, you know the area. If you're from somewhere else, Australia or around the world, you can go to sort of Ripley South, right? Ripley South.
You can transpose this to any area in Australia because the basics don't change.
Sure.
But what people have to realise is that a person with disability is no different to any able-bodied person. They want what we want. So the conversation is, so Fred, I want you to picture yourself on your block of land in an electric wheelchair with your arms and legs cable tied. I want you to think about where you want to go. And where you want to go is the same as every able-bodied person, particularly with say an improved livability house. And that is, you want to have a drink with family and friends, you want a bite to eat, you want to go to the chemist, the doctor. Don't think about the hospital. That's not the holy grail that everyone thinks it is. If you're going to hospital,
get some groceries at Coles or
right. If you're going to hospital, you go and buy a patient transport. You're not going by wheelchair. When you roll off your block, you want to roll on formed footpaths.
Yeah.
When you roll down the street and you want to cross it, you want to do it safely. Traffic lights or underpasses. At the very least, really good traffic management systems in place, measures, so that you can do it safely. You want to be very close to wheelchair accessible public transport. Not all public transport is wheelchair accessible. And last but not least, excuse me, you want to be within 5, not really a max, let's say 500 to 700 metres from where those facilities are, because when you get there, you've got to come back. So Fred, how many of those criteria does your proposed block of land meet? And this particular time, the guy said, to be honest, Phil, none. And I've said, well, you can quote me, I suggest you don't walk away, you run. And he said, Phil, I've already started jogging. Now, we we haven't got the time to have that conversation with everyone. So I hope that your podcast gets to millions of people, because they need to hear that. I've had some of the biggest social impact funds in Australia say, where should we build? And a particular one asked that. And I said, oh, is there a no-go zone or no-go area? I said, there's very, very overcrowded local government areas, LGAs, but there's still pockets within those. So let's pick on the original one, Logan. When the NDIS first kicked off, it did seem, and a quick Google would find it at that time, that there seemed to be a disproportionate number of people with disability in the Logan LGA. So everybody swooped on Logan, and they built the ubiquitous 3-participant plus OOA high physical support house on 227 square metre footprint on a 400 square metre block of land, and they built them by the score. So when this social impact, the representative of the social impact fund said, yeah, where should we build? I said, if you can buy a suburban infill block of land where you can throw a stone with a good right arm at the Logan Hyperdome, buy it. And I don't get to, and build, and I don't often get to use the word guarantee. A guarantee will fill it, because that's where they want to live.
Yep.
Not in the back blocks.
But
So,
you can say the same thing. Look, let's talk about a couple of areas that are just oversupplied. Like,
we haven't got enough time.
But just as I want to highlight an example. So you and I know of essentially a whole city block in Darwin that was built full of just robust homes, right? A whole city block built with robust homes. Never in 50 years will they all be filled with robust participants and tenants. We know of a suburb about 20 minutes south of the Townsville, out of not even the CBD, south of the Townsville southern fringes. So probably 30 minutes from Townsville CBD, there's a little enclave of houses, and someone's gone in there and built 20 or 30 houses. We know parts out at of Western Ipswich, out at the Ripley area. There's probably 30 or 40 houses looking for tenants. We know there's parts of Harvey Bay. Harvey Bay is a bit cooked at the moment. There's too many of these 2-participant, 3-participant houses. Western Melbourne, by some measure in Western Melbourne, there's 200 empty houses in Western.
Yeah, I think that's very much on the low side, to be honest, Dave, but let's run with 200.
So, and going back to design and thinking about what you can and can't do, even with all of that oversupply, if you and I put our heads together for just a few minutes, we could come up with a product in Townsville that really worked. Yeah,
100%.
Right? 100%. We could come up with a product in Harvey Bay that would probably have tenanted by the end of next month. We could find stuff in Melbourne, even in that Western area, with some thoughtful design, engagement with stakeholders about what's happening, what people need. We could deliver a product that worked. That only comes about when you engage across all levels of this ecosystem before you get, I'm going to use the word grifted by some fast-talking salesperson, right?
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about I've just been scrolling Facebook, Phil, and I've managed, I don't know, I've just sold a car or got an inheritance, or I've been a very thrifty little saver, or I've sold my house, I'm downsizing from my 4-bedroom into an apartment. I've got a couple $100,000 in my pocket.
Well, you must have sold a good car.
Right. But let's say I've got $200,000 in the skyrocket.
Yeah.
And I see this thing, hey, 15% returns. You can do it with as little as $110,000. I've seen them. Yeah. You can do it with as little as $80,000, Mr. Jones. Right. And I go, hey, that looked good. And I start pushing the button and following through the sales channel. And I get a call back the next morning from a very earnest sounding, educated, well-meaning, well-informed human being. And they start me on a process.
Yeah.
Right about there, if you were me, what would your guidance be?
Rightio. First and foremost, where's this mystical block of land with a great design house and an incredible return on investment? Where exactly is it?
Let's say Harvey Bay.
Great. What's the design of the house?
It's a 2-resident house for high physical support.
Okay. Does it provide separate living areas?
No, there's one living area.
Okay. All right. How far from the Esplanade in Harvey Bay?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen that. The
Gee,
price,
well,
the price, the price for the land's really good though, Phil.
yeah. Wow. All right. Well, all right, Dave. Well, it's terrific that you've that you found this, very enticing investment opportunity. But I'm happy that you've spoken to me, because Harvey Bay is rife with empty dwellings, not just empty dwellings now, but dozens that are coming in areas that don't have any facilities. Remember back to my previous thing about being close to the shops? Point Vernon, no shops. Belai Waters, no shops. You start moving over to Urangan and Torquay and Pialba, and start getting towards the Esplanade, which is where the restaurant strip is. They start to become more attractive. And I've had a chat with a husband and wife who have bought, and I measure it before they set an appointment up. I measure the distance from where it is to where people want to go, and I happen to know Harvey Bay reasonably well. And that one just scrapes in. It's not bad, to be honest. I looked at those blocks of land.
But Phil, if I go close to the Esplanade, I've got to spend another $200,000 on land. I don't want to do that.
Well, I'm afraid, look, I'm going to default then to a very, very august publication. Comes out every quarter, Summer Foundation provided, and it's the state of the SDA market. That's part of it. It's a very, very, they are an incredibly well-resourced business and company. And we do read that. And that has said for the last, I'm going to say the last 4 quarterly reports, to expect a vacancy of 6 to 12 months. Well, actually, they say an average of 6 to 12 months. I'm not sure how you can get, I'm a bit of a numbers person. I don't know how you can get an average of 6 and 12. It's got to be one or the other. But let's take an average and say it's 9. But to expect 6 to 12 months before you get a tenant in all of these oversupplied areas. So
hang on, Phil. I've got to borrow $700,000. What if it's vacant for 12 months?
Well, can I just ask, have you committed to this purchase?
I haven't. No, not yet.
Awesome. Okay, time to take a big deep breath. The deal of a lifetime is going to come along every day when you're looking for it. If this is the deal of the lifetime and you miss it because you're going to be careful and you're going to ask the right people the right questions, you want to provide for your family off into the future, don't get this one wrong, mate. So pull back. I've heard some real, I'm not suggesting that the company that you're dealing with, you're a very discerning fella, and I don't think you'd fall prey to unscrupulous tactics. But if this company is fair income and they've really produced a great product, and the block of land is only 300,000, and they've said that there's demand, it's tick, tick, tick until a really critical factor. They've said demand. Where did they get that from? Where do you suspect they got the demand data from?
They didn't say, Phil. They just said that there's tenants waiting.
Wow. Okay. Well, as an SDA provider, I'll call BS on that one. What makes you think they're going to be waiting for your house in 12 months?
It's a long time to wait.
A long time to wait. I wouldn't. I'll find somewhere else. And yet, that's not taking into account that in such an overcrowded market, the people with disability they can choose whatever house they want. It might not be in the best location, but if it's built now, they're going to move into it.
All right, so that's good. So I think you get a sense there's some questions you can ask, right? So
yeah, absolutely,
if I've seen some slick Facebook ad, it's really, look, and again, look, we'll wrap this one up soon, mate, and then we can record another one, because I'm trying to keep these things around 20 minutes. I think this one's blown out a bit because it's just such a chunky topic.
That's a big one, mate. And I can't say my name in less than a paragraph, so you'll be behind the 8 ball straight up.
But I think that the key here is, and look, whether you find an SDA provider or in the disability services world, there's people called support coordinators as well, and they look after all of the different supports that a person with a disability needs, and they're very aware of accommodation in the area, things like that. There's organisations called Support Independent Living, SILS, and they might even have their own vacancies or their own properties that they manage, and they also provide accommodation for people with disabilities. So you can reach out to support coordinators, to SILS, to SDA providers, and you should be. You know, Phil, like you, mate. You know, I've bought and sold a few businesses in the multi-million-dollar level, and I bought and sold businesses in the several $100,000 level, and whether I'm spending 300 grand or $3 million, I'm still gonna spend weeks and weeks and weeks in due diligence, looking through, righto, where's the bugs in this deal, and that's how I attack due diligence. So if you're interested in or looking to get into a SDA investment, your job as an investor, firstly, treat it like a business. The cash flow, the levels, you've got to treat it like a business. And any business that you get into, you want to do comprehensive due diligence. And the job of due diligence is to try and, when you're doing DD, your job is to try and break the deal. You want to try and break it. What if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? And if too many things points of failure, the deal doesn't work. Right. So if you've been promised 2 sets of rent and you can just afford to keep that property with 2 sets of rent, run your numbers with 1 set of rent and a 12-month vacancy.
My word.
Does the deal break? If you can carry that, maybe you can move ahead. If you can't, deal broken, walk away. So there's the job of an investor to treat investments like a business. The due diligence, they should try and break the deal. And due diligence means reaching out to the stakeholders in that ecosystem. Whether you're in a business that sells nails or you own SDA property, there's no difference.
Can I throw a bit of a tricky one in there as well, Dave? And it's something that I've never thought about, and it comes back from me being a business broker in a previous life. And that whole do your due diligence and try to actually break the deal, that's so real. And I won't go into it now, but offline I will share a story about a young couple that lost everything through not doing that. But if a person, we can't give testimonials, we can't ask our very happy landlords to provide a testimonial by and large. They might volunteer to do it, but testimonials and referrals are the lifeblood of a business. Wouldn't it be a really simple thing just to encourage everyone when they're looking at a property and it's obvious that this particular, I'm going to use the word spruiker, has sold other properties? Would you mind sharing the details of a few of your satisfied landlords? You know, imagine that. Give me some referral. I'll take this elsewhere.
Some of the videos I see pop up on my social media feeds, you know, some of these videos have been viewed 1,000, 5,000, 1 million times, and 0 comments. Because they've all been turned off, deleted, turned off or deleted, right? You actually have to go and really work hard to find some reviews. Okay, look, let's wrap it up. I think the next episode, I'd like to talk money in the next episode and implications.
I want to find out who your car broker is, then find out what sort of car you got for 200 grand.
Until next time.